Mira Santiago paused at the wrought iron gate that arched over the gravel driveway of the sprawling estate. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across manicured lawns, and a gentle breeze carried the soft laughter of wedding guests drifting through open windows. For a moment, she hesitated, clutching the vintage leather handbag at her side. She wasn't invited, but she hadn't traveled halfway across the country to be polite. She straightened her posture, inhaled deeply, and lifted her chin. The grand farmhouse, draped in ivory ribbons and clusters of white roses, promised a fairy tale. Bridesmaids in pale blush dresses fluttered around the front porch, adjusting tulle skirts and smoothing flyaway strands of hair. The chatter of excitement could have been contagious, but Mira felt none of it. Her heart pounded as she stepped forward, each footfall a steady drumbeat echoing her resolve. A tall, uniformed attendant blocked her path. His expression was polite but firm. "Sorry, ma'am, this is private property. The ceremony is about to begin." Mira met his gaze. "I'm not here to disrupt anyone's happiness. I need to speak with Jackson Wolfe." Her voice remained calm, but an undercurrent of steel ran through each word. The attendant's eyes flicked to her face, registering her unwavering determination. "I'm sorry," he replied, glancing over his shoulder at the house. "If you have an invitation, you're welcome inside. Otherwise," she lifted her chin higher, "this photograph is my invitation." With that, she withdrew a single image from her handbag. It captured her and Jackson in a dimly lit restaurant just weeks ago, laughter frozen in time. The attendant hesitated, confusion flickering across his features. Without another word, Mira slipped past him and onto the flagstone path. Inside the foyer, mirrors multiplied her reflection. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured pools of light on gleaming marble floors. She moved with purpose, aware of the hush that fell as she passed through corridors lined with ancestral portraits. Each mirror seemed to warn her that there was no turning back. Through a wide archway, Mira entered the main hall. Rows of white chairs were occupied by elegantly dressed guests, faces uplifted toward an altar at the far end. Petals of ivory roses lay scattered along an aisle carpeted in soft velvet. In the center, Jackson Wolfe stood beside his bride, Celeste Monroe, her gown flowing like ripples of ivory silk. Sunlight streaming through tall windows haloed her in a golden glow. Mira paused, heart thundering. For a moment, she simply stared, at the bride's serene smile, at Jackson's confident posture, at the gathered crowd, oblivious to the storm about to break. Memories rushed through her, late-night promises, whispered secrets, silent tears shed alone. Every joyous moment she once believed in now felt like a knife twisting in her chest. Her palms were slick with sweat, fingers trembling slightly as she gripped her clutch. She remembered the first time he kissed her under that golden street lamp. The way his touch had stirred something deep in her. Now that memory seemed like a cruel joke. Every plan she'd crafted, every moment she'd sacrificed, had built to this single instant. She would not let fear betray her. Not now. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. She had rehearsed this moment countless times. Then, gathering her courage, she took a steady step down the aisle, her arrival about to shatter everything. Everything will change from this moment on. Celeste Monroe stood beneath the floral archway, every heartbeat a hammer in her chest. The ivory lace of her gown embraced her like a second skin, the sweetheart neckline revealing just enough to feel alluring without spilling any secrets. She offered Jackson Wolfe a steady smile, bright as the morning sun filtering through stained glass windows behind him. Above, pale pink petals drifted from the ceiling, landing softly on guests' shoulders. Her bridesmaids flanked her in matching blush satin, their excitement buzzing at the edges of her consciousness. Celeste had dreamed of this moment since girlhood, the exchange of vows, the kiss that sealed a lifetime. She inhaled the lavender bouquet at her side, letting its calm wash through her. The officiant cleared his throat. "Dear friends and family, we gather." His words became distant as Celeste tracked Jackson's eyes. He looked at her with something between awe and impatience. Normally, that subtle impatience might have unsettled her, but today it felt like a secret they shared, a hidden tension in the air. As Celeste's lips curved to speak her vow, a single high-heeled step echoed behind her. Time fractured. The guests turned. A woman in a navy sheath dress had emerged from the back doors, her face pale, eyes blazing. Celeste froze, the vow on her lips dissolving. Mira Santiago's voice cut through the hush like a razor. He was in my bed last night. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. The string quartet stuttered to a halt. Celeste's breath hitched. She understood those words in an instant, felt their weight crash into her chest. Her knees trembled. She clenched the bouquet to steady herself. The delicate roses bent beneath her grip, petals bruising. Jackson's jaw slackened. He didn't move to stop Mira. He simply stood frozen, as though the weight of her accusation pinned him in place. The officiant stammered, searching. I'm sorry, ma'am, you can't. But Myra's gaze never wavered. She took deliberate steps down the aisle, each heel clicking against the marble. The crowd parted before her like the Red Sea, the bride and groom at its center. Celeste's maid of honor crossed herself in shock. The groomsmen exchanged stunned glances. Mira stopped a few feet from the altar. She held a small, black leather notebook in one hand, the one Jackson had slipped into her purse that London night. Inside were receipts, bank transfers, hotel keycards, proof of late-night rendezvous. She flipped it open to a marked page. With a clear voice that carried to the chandeliers, she read aloud a date, a time, a location. June 3rd, 11:47 p.m., Suite 702, the Langham Hotel. Silence slammed down again. Celeste's world spun. They'd flown to London, to Paris, to Bali for business and pleasure, and she'd never questioned where he went in the in-between. Now the truth was exposed in front of every aunt, cousin, colleague, pastor. Jackson finally spoke, voice low and tight. Mira. No, she cut him off. Let her hear it. Celeste's mind buzzed. Vows, promises, rings, all hollow. The guests sat frozen, each one grappling with what to do next. Applaud, cry, flee. Overhead, petals drifted down like snow. Celeste felt trapped beneath the weight of her dress, her reputation, her heartbreak. She opened her mouth. Words tangled in her throat. The officiant backed away, unsure whether to announce a recess or call security. Celeste met Jackson's eyes, once so familiar, now cold and alien. As Mira closed her notebook, the echo of her final sentence hovered. You thought you chose her, Jackson, but last night you chose me. Celeste's throat burned. Somewhere behind her, a child cried, a hand at her back, her mother, tears pooling in her eyes. But Celeste heard nothing beyond the bomb that had detonated her perfect day. Celeste woke in a pale blue hospital gown, the antiseptic sting of fluorescent lights stiffening her senses. She blinked twice, then focused on the nurse hustling past, clipboard in hand. A soft beeping tracked her heartbeat from a monitor beside the bed. Moments later, her mother, Evelyn, hovered at her side, clasping a gloved hand around Celeste's own. Darling, are you all right? Her voice trembled between relief and fury. I thought you'd fainted. Celeste's lips felt swollen. She remembered Myra's accusation, the gasp of the crowd, the way the floor had pitched beneath her feet. She swallowed, tasted metal. I think I blacked out, she whispered. Evelyn touched her forehead. You had a mild concussion. The doctor said you'll be fine. But we need to talk about, well, that spectacle. Celeste closed her eyes. I don't even know where to start. Later, removed from prying eyes, mother and daughter sat in a small consultation room. Sunlight filtered through blinds, striping the walls with shadow. Evelyn exhaled. Jackson called me himself. He's staying at a hotel nearby. He wants to see you. Celeste bristled. He's what? Avoidance. Or guilt. Evelyn's mouth pinched. I don't know. He sounded shaken. Said he'll come over. Celeste clenched her fists. He needs to explain. When Jackson arrived, his posture was stiff, shoulders hunched under the weight of his suit. He looked older than 40, haggard, as if she'd aged him a decade with a single revelation. He bowed his head, pain flickering in his dark eyes. Celeste, She cut him off, voice low but trembling. Don't say it. He sank into the chair opposite her, gaze fixed on the floor. I never wanted you to find out like that. You said last night was a mistake, she whispered, recalling the hushed apologies in London. But it wasn't. It was deliberate. He winced. I was confused. The wedding, your father's deal, it was too much. I felt trapped. Trapped? Celeste's laugh was brittle. You enlisted another woman while you planned our future. Jackson's eyes flicked to her mother, then back. Mira meant nothing. This. He gestured helplessly at himself at her. This is what mattered. Celeste's heart slammed. You swore you loved me. You proposed to me. I believed it was real. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. It was real, when we weren't pretending everything was perfect. She bristled. So your solution was to carry on an affair? He flinched. It wasn't just that. I thought I was doing the right thing. For the company, for your family. Celeste's tears fell. So I was collateral damage. He closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Her mother cleared her throat, breaking the tension. Celeste, maybe you should rest. Celeste stood abruptly. No. I want him to say it to my face. She turned back. Why, Jackson? Why me? He took a shaky breath. Because I love you. But I was a coward. Celeste's chest tightened. I need time. He nodded, defeated. I understand. As he left, Celeste felt hollow, as if the truth had hollowed her out. She sank into the chair, tears slipping free. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, her heart shattered. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the hospital's corridors in amber glow, Celeste sat alone in her room. The door clicked open and her father, Victor Monroe, entered, his tailored blazer slung over one arm, phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call abruptly, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. How are you feeling? His tone was businesslike. Celeste looked up, fatigue etched around her eyes. Surprisingly coherent. Victor inclined his head. Good. I've arranged for your release tomorrow. Discretion is paramount. She frowned. Discretion? He humiliated me in front of everyone. Victor sighed, dropping into a chair. This was a breach of contract and reputation. I'm filing papers to delay the merger indefinitely. Celeste's breath caught. You're pulling out. Victor ran a hand down his temple. Your well-being is more important than a deal. She studied him. The steely control, the protectiveness. Thank you. He slid a folder across the table. Jackson admitted to the board that he misled us. We have leverage. Her thumb traced the embossed letterhead. Leverage for what? Victor leaned forward. Compensation and a formal apology to you. We can force a public statement. Celeste's chest tightened. I don't want a statement. I want answers. Her father hesitated. You'll get them. But remember, forgiveness and revenge are two sides of the same coin. She closed her eyes. I'll decide which side to spend it on. News of the fiasco leaked to the press by dawn. Headlines blared. Bride betrayed at altar and fiancé's double life exposed. Photographs captured Myra's icy calm as she delivered her accusation. Celeste's stunned collapse, Jackson's ashen face. Celeste sat in her living room, the TV muted as she flipped through channels looping the scandal. Her wedding dress hung untouched in the guest bedroom, its ivory lace a mocking reminder. She traced the screen, feeling the sting of every flashing image. Her phone buzzed nonstop, messages from friends, family, colleagues. Some offered sympathy, others asked for interviews. One from the magazine that had touted her as social queen of the year demanded a statement. Celeste deleted it. At noon, Mira arrived at Celeste's door. She wore the same navy sheath and carried her leather notebook. Celeste hesitated, then nodded her in. They sat at opposite ends of the sofa. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Mira closed her notebook. I didn't expect to be part of your life again, she began softly. Celeste's eyes narrowed. You crashed my wedding. Mira dipped her head. I ruined your day, but I had to. I couldn't let him marry you under false pretenses. Celeste's tears burned. Why did you stay silent all those months? Mira swallowed. Because I loved him, and I convinced myself I was wrong. Then I found out he was making promises, reserve apartments, business favors for you. Celeste's breath hitched. He lied to both of us. Mira nodded. He treated us like options. Celeste placed a hand on her own heart. And yet I feel more betrayal from you. Myra's gaze wavered. I understand. But I hope one day you'll see I saved you from a marriage built on lies. Celeste closed her eyes. Maybe. But some wounds don't heal. Myra stood. I'm sorry for everything. She hesitated, then added, if there's anything I can do. But Celeste already turned away. For nights before the wedding, Jackson disembarked at Heathrow, jet-lagged and anxious. The bustle of arrivals washed over him. Families reuniting, tourists wheeling suitcases, taxi drivers hawking fares. He squinted at the crowd, scanning faces as though seeking a lifeline in a sea of strangers. There she was, Myra, leaning against the baggage claim barrier, arms folded tightly. Her hair fell in glossy waves over a trench coat tailored to perfection. Her expression was unreadable, stone even. He approached slowly. Myra, he said, voice rough. She didn't move. Why did you want to see me? He rubbed the back of his neck. I needed to talk. I've been running for myself. She surveyed him coolly. You ran from me for months. He swallowed. I know. I was scared. Scared of what I wanted. Myra's lips curled. So you came here. She glanced around the terminal. Instead of home? He met her eyes. Because I realized I can't marry Celeste without confronting this. He exhaled. I love you. Myra's gaze flicked to his suitcase, then back. Love me? You proposed to another woman, while you were still with me. He stepped closer. That was wrong. I panicked. He pulled something from his pocket, a worn photograph of the two of them, smiling under the Eiffel Tower years ago. I tried to recreate that. Myra's shoulders slumped. Recreate us? By betraying me. He shook his head. I was torn between loyalty and ambition. Celeste's family, her father's firm. It's the merger I've worked for all my life. He promised to elevate my company. Myra bit her lip. At what cost? Jackson closed his eyes. My integrity. Myra let out a long breath. You owe me more than apologies. He nodded, remorse flooding his features. I know. I'll do whatever it takes. Myra pocketed the photo. We'll see. As he hailed a cab, Jackson watched Myra fade into the crowd, her black trench coat like a shadow slipping away. In that moment, he understood that no merger, no wedding, could replace the emptiness he felt without her trust. The cab driver called out his fare as Jackson climbed in. He stared at the photograph in Myra's coat pocket, resolve hardening. The wedding bells still beckoned. But now, he knew he'd have to face the wreckage of the past before saying I do. The bistro's amber glow embraced Myra and Jackson as they slipped through its glass doors. Overhead, wrought iron chandeliers cast rippling light across linen-draped tables. A single violinist coaxed a slow, haunting melody from an aged instrument in the corner. Myra settled onto a velvet banquette, smoothing her trench coat, while Jackson hung his blazer on the chair behind her. Each movement deliberate, charged with unspoken tension. A waiter appeared, crisp in black and white, and Jackson ordered 2 glasses of Chateau Lafite. The wine arrived quickly, the deep red liquid catching candlelight like liquid garnet. Jackson lifted his glass. To honesty, he murmured. Myra's fingers curled around her stemware. And to second chances, she replied, meeting his gaze. He set his glass down and exhaled. I wanted tonight to be different. No secrets. His dark eyes searched hers. I never stopped thinking about you after I left. Myra's heart fluttered, part relief, part dread. Then why did you propose to Celeste? Jackson's jaw tightened. Pressure. My company's board, her father's firm. I thought a strategic marriage would secure everything I've worked for. He ran a hand through his hair, but it was a mistake. Myra's gaze hardened. A mistake that almost cost me everything. She recalled late-night calls, whispered promises. He leaned forward. I deserved your anger. I betrayed you. His voice cracked. I want to make it right. The waiter returned with a plate of prosciutto and olives. Jackson gestured for Myra to eat. She nibbled a slice, savoring its salt as he watched her. You said you'd call off the wedding, she reminded him quietly. He nodded. I told Celeste everything this morning. She was hurt, but she understood. His eyes flicked away. She agreed to postpone until we all had clarity. Mira studied him. And what about clarity for us? He reached across the table, fingertips brushing her knuckles. I want to rebuild what we had. His sincerity struck her. 6 months apart. That faint echo of love still pulsing between them. Outside, a breeze rattled the windows. The violinist's bow grazed final notes as Jackson rose, offering his hand. Come upstairs, he whispered. Mira hesitated, memories of rejection still raw. But she rose, sliding her coat back on. In the stairwell, candle sconces guided them up wrought iron steps. Each soft footfall echoed their unsteady hope. At the suite door, Jackson unlocked it and stepped aside. Inside, moonlight pooled across the hardwood floor. He closed the curtains, bathing them in soft shadow. I'm sorry, he breathed, pulling her close. Mira closed her eyes against his chest, listening to the steady thrum of his heartbeat. There, in that hush, she let herself believe his remorse and allowed him to erase the silence between them. Dawn crept over London's rooftops as Mira awoke to pale sunlight filtering through lace curtains. She lay tangled in crisp white sheets, the hush of early morning broken only by distant traffic. Jackson stirred beside her, the rise and fall of his chest a steady reassurance. Mira traced a lazy circle on his shoulder. Morning, she whispered. He opened heavy-lidded eyes and smiled, gentle, apologetic. Morning. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. Thank you for last night. She shifted to face him. You promised you'd make it right. His jaw tightened. I will. He slid from the bed, heading toward the small breakfast nook near the window. Outside, pigeons cooed on the sill. He brewed coffee, rich, dark roast, while Mira watched him move. The suite smelled of ground beans and fresh linen. When he set 2 mugs on the table, Mira wrapped both hands around her cup. Tell me again, she urged softly. Jackson took a deep sip. I called Celeste. I told her everything about us, about how this wedding was a sham. His gaze wavered. She was devastated, but she listened. Mira arched an eyebrow. And her father? He understood too. He agreed the merger should wait until after things were settled personally. He paused, studying her face. He's pulling out of the board meeting next week. Myra's relief was tempered by caution. So the deal is off. He nodded. For now. He reached across the table, fingertips brushing hers. I promised Mira Santiago that I'd choose honesty over ambition. He met her eyes. I choose you. Mira felt tears sting her vision. You choose me. She held his gaze. For months she'd begged for truth. Now it stood before her, fragile as a butterfly's wing. And no more secrets? He drained his cup. No more secrets. He stood, pulling her into an embrace. I'll cancel the venue, call off the caterers. Everything. Mira tilted her cheek to his chest. Everything. Everything. His voice throbbed with conviction. I want only one woman in my life. She closed her eyes, savoring the warmth of his promise. But even as her heart fluttered, a flicker of doubt remained, memories of unanswered calls and broken vows. She inhaled, steadying herself on his solid frame. Then earn that trust, she whispered. Jackson kissed her forehead. I will. In that quiet suite, they forged a pact sealed by morning light. No more lies, no more half-truths. Only a promise born of vulnerability, and the hope that love could rise from betrayal's ashes. Mira returned home to Lagos on a late afternoon flight, suitcase wheels clattering through her apartment's marble entryway. She dropped her bag by the door and sank onto the sofa, recounting the morning's triumph to the silent room. Her phone lay heavy in her hand. No missed calls, no unread messages. She dialed Jackson's number. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Ring, ring, then the same hush. Jackson, she whispered into the phone. I'm back. Call me. She ended the call and stared at the blank screen. Over the next 2 days, she repeated the ritual, morning, noon, night. But Jackson remained unreachable. No text acknowledging her safe return. No email confirming the wedding's postponement. Just silence. On the third evening, she tucked in her phone and prepared dinner. Chopped vegetables sizzled in olive oil. The aroma filled the kitchen. She plated fish and rice, sat at the table alone, and ate mechanically, each bite tasteless, without his voice at the other end of the line. A knock at her door startled her. Hope surged, until she opened it to find a courier holding an envelope. "For you, ma'am," he said. She signed. He left. She slid it open. A crisp white card with Celeste's handwriting. Inside, a single line. "Hope you're well. Please contact me." Myra's heart pounded. Celeste, plainly invested in the outcome. She dialed Celeste's number. It rang once, then connected. "Myra, it's me." Celeste's voice was cautious. "I haven't heard from Jackson either. Did he call you?" Myra shook her head, even though Celeste couldn't see her. "No. I thought he would after last week." Celeste exhaled. "I'm worried. I got a call from his assistant. Said he's traveling, unavailable for comment." Myra's throat closed. Traveling. Something about emergency meetings in Paris. Celeste's words felt like a betrayal. "He promised me an apology this morning." Myra pressed her palm to her chest. "He promised me too." They sat in uneasy silence. Finally, Celeste added, "We should meet." Myra's fingers trembled. "Yes, let's." That night, Myra lay in bed, replaying every word Jackson had said. His promise of honesty echoed in the darkness, each vow now a needle of doubt. She reached for her phone and stared at his empty contact. Dawn brought no message. She dressed for their meeting in a navy sheath, professional, guarded. Stepping into the elevator, she braced for confrontation, determined not to let another promise vanish without a trace. Back in her apartment's walk-in closet, Myra stared at a single navy blue cocktail dress, sleek satin, off-shoulder neckline, hanging untouched. It was the dress she had planned to wear last night, to celebrate their renewed commitment. Now its emptiness felt like a mocking echo. She lifted it from its hanger, running her fingers along the fabric. Memories surfaced, Jackson's breath warm against her neck as he murmured apologies, his hand smoothing the dress's folds. She slipped it over her arm, then paused before the mirror. In the reflection stood a woman drained of hope, eyes rimmed red from 2 nights without sleep. She tried on the dress anyway, shimmying it over her head. It clung to her like a second skin. She spun, watching its graceful sway. She had believed in second chances, and now believed in nothing. With a sigh, she peeled it off and returned it to its place. Her hands lingered on the hanger, then dropped it. The dress swung gently, a lonely pendulum in the silent room. She backed away until the closet door clicked closed. Downstairs, the city's bustle called to her. She grabbed her trench coat and purse. At the elevator, her reflection stared back. No satin gown, no trembling excitement. Only a woman unmoored, searching for solid ground. She hailed a cab and directed the driver to Celeste's favorite cafe. Each passing landmark, coffee shops, boutiques, paper lantern terraces, reminded her of the life she once dreamed of. Now, the dress remained at home, a symbol of promises unraveling at both ends. Celeste's eyes fluttered open to muted light, filtering through sheer curtains. The sterile scent of antiseptic mingled with lavender from a diffuser on the nightstand. She blinked, disoriented, propped herself on one elbow, memory rushing back in shards. Myra's words, the gasp of the crowd, the ground slipping away. Her mother, Evelyn, sat in a wingback chair, phone in hand. Beside her, Celeste's older sister, Naomi, hovered with a worried frown. Both women wore hospital-issue scrubs, their faces etched with fatigue. "Celeste, you're awake," Evelyn said, relief flooding her tone. She rose and smoothed her daughter's hair. "I was so scared." Celeste's throat felt thick. She tried to speak, but her voice came out a croak. Naomi pressed a damp cloth to her forehead. "You had a mild concussion and dehydration," she explained gently. "The doctor kept you overnight for observation." Celeste swallowed. "Am I okay?" Evelyn set a glass of water on the bedside table. "You'll be fine. But we need to tell you what happened." Celeste traced the white duvet. "Tell me." Naomi perched on the bed's edge. "When you fainted at the altar, they rushed you here. They patched you up, Ran tests. Jackson. He went with you. Stayed until morning. Celeste's chest tightened. He stayed. Evelyn exchanged a glance with Naomi. He called me at dawn. Said he was remorseful. Wanted to be here. Celeste's mind spun. And Mira? Evelyn sighed. She escorted you in the ambulance. She's waiting downstairs. Celeste pressed her fingers to her temples. I need coffee. Naomi smiled weakly. We'll get it. Moments later, the sisters returned bearing steaming cups. The aroma grounded Celeste. She wrapped both hands around the mug. Naomi perched again. Jackson asked to see you, she said quietly. Celeste stiffened. Not yet. Naomi nodded. Mira wants to talk first. Celeste met her sister's gaze. I owe her that. Evelyn offered a reassuring smile. Take it slow. Celeste took a sip. The heat and bitterness reminded her that some awakenings were harsher than others. She exhaled, bracing herself. Below, footsteps approached, Myra's steady, deliberate steps. Celeste's journey back to truth and decision began here, in this quiet room where every heartbeat marked a choice between forgiveness or closure. Celeste stared at her phone, willing Jackson's number to appear on the screen. His voicemail had greeted her 4 times in the past 24 hours, but no callback. The silence gnawed at her, more damaging than anger, more unsettling than pity. She sat in the parlor of her childhood home, sunlight filtering through lace curtains. Her mother fussed over teacups, refilling them without asking. Naomi hovered by the mantel, fidgeting with a silver frame that held a photo of Celeste and Jackson at an art gala. So full of promise then. Evelyn set a gentle hand on Celeste's arm. He'll call. Celeste's jaw tightened. He promised he would. Naomi folded her arms. Maybe he's ashamed. Celeste looked at her sister. So ashamed he strings me along. Evelyn cleared her throat. He may be dealing with the fallout, press, board members, family calls. Celeste's gaze raked the room. His problems don't absolve him of his promises. They lapsed into silence. Outside, a mourning dove cooed in the garden. Celeste sipped her tea. Lukewarm now, bitter as regret. That evening, Celeste paced her apartment. Cell phone pressed to her ear. She dialed Jackson again. It rang out. She left a steady message, voice calm but firm. Jackson, this silence isn't honorable. Call me back. The next morning brought a letter by courier. The envelope bore Jackson's unmistakable scrawl. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal. Inside, a single page of typed text, signed in ink. Celeste, I cannot face you right now. I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused. I need time to sort out my affairs before I speak with you. Trust that I will. Jackson. Celeste's vision blurred. Time. Affairs. What could possibly justify another delay? She balled the letter and tossed it into the fireplace. The flames devoured the confession, but couldn't erase the ache in her chest. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Mira, coat collar turned up against a chill. Her eyes were tired, but resolute. Can I come in? Mira asked softly. Celeste stepped aside wordlessly. Mira entered, kicking off her shoes. She sat on the edge of the sofa. I heard about the letter, Mira said. Celeste crumpled onto the sofa. He still won't talk to me. Mira nodded. I've been there. Celeste met her gaze, vulnerability cracking her composure. How did you handle it? Mira leaned back, eyes distant. I accepted that I couldn't control his choices. Only mine. Celeste's grip on the cushion tightened. I feel powerless. Mira reached out, placing a hand over Celeste's. You have a choice. Wait for him to act, or take action yourself. Celeste's throat constricted. What action? Myra's thumb stroked her hand. Find out everything, before you give him another chance. Celeste swallowed. You mean investigate? Myra's lips quirked. Knowledge is power. At least, then you won't be left in the dark. Celeste exhaled. Thank you. They sat in companionable silence, the unspoken understanding that both women now shared. They could no longer rely on Jackson's words alone. That night, Celeste fetched her laptop and opened a browser. The cursor blinked over a search bar. Private Investigator Lagos. Her finger hovered over the enter key. She pressed it. A week later, Celeste and Mira sat opposite each other in a discreet cafe tucked away in a side street. The private investigator, Mr. Africantales, joined them at the table, a wiry man with keen eyes and a leather briefcase. "Good afternoon," he began, sliding into the booth. "I've compiled what I could find so far." He opened his briefcase and laid out photographs, receipts, and documents. Celeste leaned forward, heart pounding. "Everything you know about Jackson Wolf." Mr. Africantales nodded. First, his travel logs show unscheduled trips to London, Paris, and Dubai over the past 6 months. Not all business-related, as he claimed. He slid over boarding passes under the alias of J. Wolf. Mira picked up one of the flight receipts. He never mentioned these. Mr. Africantales flipped to a dossier. Next, multiple credit card transactions at an upscale Lagos hotel. Room service charged to a card registered in your name, Celeste. Celeste's breath hitched. "Under my name?" "Yes," Mr. Africantales continued. "And here, an apartment lease in Victoria Island, signed with forged identification documents matching yours." Myra's eyes widened. He used her identity to hide his affair. The investigator tapped another file. Finally, messages from Celeste's father's law firm discussing the postponement clause. Emails appear genuine, but server metadata shows they originated from an IP in London, not Lagos. Celeste's knuckles whitened. So he orchestrated the merger, using fake communications. Mr. Africantales folded his hands. "That's my working theory. He manipulated everyone, family, business partners, both of you." Celeste closed her eyes, fighting tears. Mira reached across and squeezed her hand. Mr. Africantales added quietly, "If you choose to pursue legal action, there's substantial evidence here. Fraud, identity theft, misuse of company resources." Celeste exhaled slowly. "I came here to find answers, not just data." Myra's gaze softened. "He left us no choice. At least now we can confront him with facts." Celeste nodded. "I want to face him together." Myra's lips curled. "I'll stand by you." Mr. Africantales gathered his papers. "I'll prepare a full report for your attorney. Expect delivery tomorrow." He stood. "Thank you for your time." They watched him leave, then turned to each other. Celeste's voice was steely. "He needs to see us, both of us." Mira reached across and touched Celeste's hand. "Let's give him a date." The following afternoon, Celeste and Mira sat in Celeste's study, a sunlit room lined with bookshelves and family photos. A large calendar hung on the wall, its pages marked with dates of key events: London trip, proposal dinner, wedding rehearsal, the explosion at the altar. Wearing gloves, Celeste spread the documents from Mr. Africantales across her desk: boarding passes, emails, bank statements. Mira stood by the window, peering out as though scanning the street for Jackson's arrival. Celeste tapped a printed itinerary. "He claims the Paris trip was for your father's business pitch." She pointed at a flight on July 10th. "But these hotel charges on July 11th are to room 401 at Hotel Le Marais." Mira nodded. "That's the suite where we stayed on our last anniversary." Celeste's brow furrowed. "So he was with me on July 9th, then with you on July 11th. Mira crossed her arms. No gap for a business call. Celeste retrieved a phone bill. "Look here, calls logged to an unknown number at 2:13 a.m. on July 10th. Duration, 47 minutes. She dialed the number. It went straight to voicemail labeled simply JW. Mira bit her lip. "Is that his second apartment?" Celeste clicked through property records. "Yes, 2-bedroom in Victoria Island. Lease signed under my name." Myra's eyes widened. "He used your identity to conceal his whereabouts." Celeste's chest tightened. Every promise he made, every excuse, now crumbles. She ran a hand through her hair. "We need to confront him with this timeline." Mira leaned in. "He can't argue with facts laid out like this." Celeste printed a master timeline. Dates down the left column, Jackson's alleged activities in the middle, confirmed evidence on the right. Each row a betrayal. She looked at Mira. "We'll meet him tomorrow at his lawyer's office." Mira nodded. Give him no room to weasel out. Celeste folded the timeline and slid it into an envelope. I'll hand this to his attorney first, so there's a paper trail. Mira placed a reassuring hand on Celeste's shoulder. You're not alone in this. Celeste exhaled, steeling herself. Tomorrow I get my answers. Late afternoon sunlight painted Celeste's office golden as she met with Ms. Adebola, her corporate attorney. Celeste laid out the evidence, the timeline, the forged documents, the financial records. Ms. Adebola adjusted her glasses, absorbing each detail. This is comprehensive, she said. Between fraud, identity theft, and breach of fiduciary duty, we have a strong case. Celeste leaned forward. I want him held accountable for the emotional and financial damage. Ms. Adebola nodded. I'll draft the summons. We can file suit by week's end. I recommend seeking a temporary injunction to freeze his assets. Celeste closed her eyes. Yes, no hiding behind wealth. Ms. Adebola tapped her pen. Also, consider a joint suit with Ms. Santiago. Your combined claims will be more compelling. Celeste glanced at the door. Mira will stand with me. Ms. Adebola typed notes. Good. I'll contact her counsel as well. Celeste stood, resolving to see this through. As she gathered her things, she realized the investigators' findings had shifted her from powerless victim to a woman armed with truth and ready to reclaim her life. The next morning, Mira and Celeste sat together in Celeste's car outside the sleek glass facade of Wolf Media Group's headquarters. The building rose like a sentinel over Victoria Island's business district, its mirrored windows reflecting a bright, accusing sky. They exited the car, heels clicking on the pavement. Inside, the lobby's marble floors gleamed. Digital directories scrolled corporate logos. They pressed the button for the 24th floor, Jackson's office. The elevator carried them upward in silence. At the 24th floor, they were escorted by an assistant to Jackson's spacious corner suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a panoramic view of Lagos, but Celeste barely noticed the city below. Jackson stood beside his desk, back to them, staring out. His sharp suit was impeccable, but his stance was rigid. At the scent of her perfume, he turned. Surprise flashed in his eyes, swiftly replaced by caution. Celeste. His voice cracked. Mira. Celeste folded her arms. We have questions. Mira placed the envelope on his desk. About Wolf Media's merger pitch. Jackson frowned. What about it? Celeste tapped the envelope. We discovered that Wolf Innovations Limited, the company you claimed approached Celeste's father, doesn't exist. Jackson swallowed. Wolf Innovations is a shell, set up to test the merger feasibility. Myra's eyes narrowed. A shell company created under my name. You used my identity in the lease. Jackson's face paled. It was regrettable. Celeste exhaled slowly. You deliberately misled your own board, your fiancé's family, and your lover. Jackson took a step back. I did what I thought necessary to close the deal. Myra's voice was steady. By lying to all of us. Jackson glanced at the envelope, then met Celeste's gaze. I'm sorry. Celeste's voice rose. Sorry isn't enough. She opened the envelope and spread the timeline on his desk. Here's every trip, every forged document, every bank transaction. Explain yourself. Jackson sank into his desk chair, running a hand through his hair. I lost sight of what mattered. Myra's lips trembled. What mattered? You chose ambition over us. Jackson looked between them. I know I breached your trust. Celeste's eyes glinted. Now you'll face the consequences in court. Jackson exhaled, defeated. I understand. Celeste stood. Good. She turned to Mira. Let's go. As they walked away, Jackson's voice stopped them. Wait. They paused. He rose unsteadily and handed Celeste a folded piece of paper. This is my resignation from the merger committee and Wolf Media board. Celeste glanced at Mira, then at the paper. She tucked it into her purse, without a word. Outside, the city buzzed with life. Celeste and Mira stepped into the sunlight, united, no longer victims, but women empowered by truth, ready to shape their own futures. The morning sun streamed through Celeste's study window as she and Mira reviewed a new discovery, A lease agreement for a sleek two-bedroom apartment in Lekki, signed under Celeste's name. The pages were crisp, the ink still faintly glistening as though wet. Celeste's pulse thundered in her ears. He set up a secret home for us, without our consent, she whispered, voice taut. Myra's dark eyes flashed. Imagine my shock when the building manager handed me your lease details. Celeste ran a hand through her hair. It's proof he spent nights there. Nights he promised he was at home or traveling for business. Myra's jaw tightened. We need to see it ourselves. They drove through Lagos traffic, tension crackling between them like wires. In the back seat, Celeste's fingers fluttered over the lease, memorizing the address. Myra sat beside her, silent and resolute. When they reached Lekki's boulevard of glass-fronted complexes, Celeste's breath caught at the sight of the building, modern, angular, with balconies overlooking the lagoon. She accompanied Myra through the lobby, nodding curtly at the security guard. No one recognized her. The building's residents were strangers. On the 20th floor, they located apartment 2012. Myra lifted a brow at the polished door, unmarked save for the number. Celeste's heart pounded. She produced a copy of the lease and showed it to the building manager. His expression flickered between apology and curiosity. Ms. Monroe, he said, voice subdued. Your lease is active. The tenant, Mr. Wolfe, collected the keys 2 weeks ago. Inside, the apartment was spotless. Minimalist furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, art prints on the walls. A fresh bouquet of lilies sat on the marble counter, petals unfurling as if expecting a guest. Celeste swallowed. He had flowers delivered for her, she murmured. Myra's fists clenched. He decorated his hideaway, while pretending to build a life with me. The living room smelled faintly of sandalwood, an unfamiliar scent. They explored the bedrooms. One fitted with a king-size bed dressed in white linen, the other sparsely furnished, perhaps intended as a study. On the nightstand, Celeste spotted a framed photograph. Jackson and Myra in Paris, their smiles magnetic beneath the Eiffel Tower. She picked it up, tracing its edges. He curated memories here, she said, voice low. This was their sanctuary. Myra swept the apartment with her gaze, anger softening into sorrow. He treated our love like a business asset, leased apartments, forged documents, manipulated families. This, she gestured around, was the collateral. Celeste's throat constricted. We have to use this. They photographed every detail. Invoices for furniture deliveries, credit card slips in Celeste's name, even a digital keypad log showing entry timestamps at odd hours. Celeste's camera phone buzzed with images, creating an involuntary timeline of betrayal. As they prepared to leave, the apartment echoed with ghostly absence. Celeste paused by the window, looking out at the Lagos skyline glittering under afternoon light. He thought he could compartmentalize us. You in hotels, me in boardrooms, us here, she said, turning to Myra. But now we hold all the evidence. Myra placed a steady hand on Celeste's shoulder. He built this false life. Now we'll demolish it in court under oath. Celeste nodded, resolve coalescing. She slipped the lease into her purse. Let's go. Together, they descended the elevator, two women no longer defined by his deceptions, but empowered by the truth they unearthed. The next morning, Myra's phone beeped with a reminder. OB-GYN appointment, 10 a.m. Her breath caught. She delayed the visit, hoping nausea would subside. Instead, it had intensified, an ache beneath her ribs that wouldn't relent. Now, standing in the clinic's waiting room, Myra clenched her purse strap, heart fluttering between fear and hope. Celeste arrived, concern etched on her face. How are you feeling? She asked, taking Myra's hand. Myra swallowed. Morning sickness, but more than that, I'm scared. She forced a smile. I need answers. The doctor greeted them warmly and led Myra to an examination room. Celeste sat outside, pacing silently. 15 minutes felt like hours until Myra emerged, tears glistening on her cheeks. Celeste rushed forward. Is it? Myra nodded, voice trembling. I'm pregnant. Celeste's eyes widened. Myra, are you okay? She wrapped her arms around her friend. The pregnancy news landed like both bombshell and blessing. Mira exhaled into her shoulder. I'm scared, but I'm not shocked. She pulled back. I wasn't planning this. Her gaze hardened. Do you think it's his? Celeste studied her. The timeline fits. He spent nights here. She hesitated, then added gently, You deserve truth and support. Myra's lips quivered. I don't know if I can face him as a mother. Celeste squeezed her hand. You won't have to alone. They left the clinic and sat in a nearby cafe. Myra's trembling fingers reached for a teacup. I told myself the pregnancy was a mistake, just another complication. Her voice faltered, but seeing that positive sign, I felt something I can't describe. Hope, maybe. Celeste nodded. This child is innocent. It deserves love and security. She met Myra's gaze. We'll protect you and that baby. Myra's shoulders relaxed slightly. I don't want to use the pregnancy against him. Celeste sipped her tea. We won't, but we'll use everything he did to us, lies, deception, identity theft, to show the court his pattern of abuse. Mira studied the teacup swirl. I never imagined a baby would emerge from this chaos. She smiled wanly. But maybe it's a new start. Celeste reached across the table. A new chapter for both of us. Mira took a steadying breath. Yes, let's proceed with the lawsuit, with or without him. This baby deserves justice. They left the cafe hand in hand, one woman carrying new life, the other driven by fierce loyalty. The pregnancy had shifted the battleground. Their fight was no longer just for truth and recompense, but for the future of an innocent child caught in Jackson's web of lies. That afternoon, Celeste arrived at her father's office, a stately colonial building overlooking Lagos Lagoon. Victor Monroe greeted her in the mahogany-paneled conference room, papers strewn across the table. His usually impassive face bore lines of tension. Dad, Celeste began. I spoke with Mira today. Her voice hushed as she recalled Myra's news. Victor waved a hand. I know. She told me at breakfast. He pressed a coffee cup into her hands. Congratulations. Celeste accepted the cup, surprised by the genuine warmth. Thank you. She studied the documents on his desk, shareholder agreements, merger proposals. About the merger, Victor's expression darkened. I've made a decision. Celeste's heart fluttered. You're pulling out? He nodded slowly. I can't, in good conscience, proceed while this scandal remains unresolved. He tapped a proposal. I withdraw our partnership offer effective immediately. Celeste's breath caught. You're sacrificing millions? Victor laid a hand on hers. Business is built on trust and integrity. Jackson betrayed you and me. I won't stake my reputation on someone guilty of fraud and deceit. Tears stung Celeste's eyes. I don't know what to say. Victor cleared his throat. You say thank you. He looked at her with pride. You stood up, you fought back. I'm proud of you. Celeste squeezed his hand. I couldn't have done it without Mira. Victor offered a rare, small smile. Then thank her for me. Families stand together. Later that evening, Celeste called Mira. He pulled out, she said, voice bright with relief. Myra's laughter crackled through the line. That's poetic justice. Celeste exhaled. It feels like vindication. Myra's tone softened. It's more than that. It's a message. Deceit has consequences. Celeste nodded, though Mira couldn't see her. Now, we prepare for the lawsuit. Our evidence is ironclad. Mira paused. And I'll need support once the baby arrives. Celeste's heart warmed. Always. We'll face this together, mother and child, friend and family. As Celeste hung up, she looked at the darkening sky over her balcony. The storm of betrayal was far from over, but for the first time, she felt the calm that follows reclaimed strength. In the hushed courtroom, rows of polished mahogany benches held an audience of onlookers, journalists, and Jackson's legal team. Celeste and Mira sat side by side at the plaintiff's table, flanked by their attorneys. Celeste's posture was poised. Myra's hand trembled slightly as she rested it on her lap, the curve of her belly a reminder of what they stood to protect. Judge Caligay entered, gavels rapped. This court is now in session, Monroe versus Wolfe. The clerk called the case. Jackson stood, immaculate in a gray suit, face drawn. He watched Celeste, guilt and remorse flickering behind his eyes. Celeste's attorney, Ms. Adebola, rose. Your Honor, we present evidence of fraud, identity theft, and emotional distress. Exhibit A. Forged lease documents for apartment 2012, signed under Ms. Monroe's name. She displayed the lease on a large easel. The courtroom murmur hushed to a tense silence. Next, she introduced Exhibit B. Bank statements showing unauthorized charges to Celeste's credit card, accompanied by receipts from hotels and flower deliveries. These were billed to Ms. Monroe without her knowledge, Ms. Adebola explained. Myra's attorney then presented Exhibit C. Medical records confirming Myra's pregnancy, and testimony that Jackson continued the affair despite knowing the implication of his actions. The gallery gasped softly as a nurse described the emotional toll on both women. Jackson's counsel objected, but Judge Caligay overruled, noting the relevance to emotional distress claims. Celeste watched Jackson's shoulders slump as the exhibits piled up. When Jackson was called to testify, he approached the stand with measured steps. The bailiff administered the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth? Jackson nodded, voice steady but subdued. I do. Ms. Adebola leaned forward. Mr. Wolfe, did you knowingly forge Ms. Monroe's signature on a lease? Jackson's throat bobbed. Yes. Did you charge personal expenses to her credit card? He swallowed. Yes. Did you continue your relationship with Miss Santiago while engaged to Ms. Monroe? His gaze dropped. I did. Ms. Adebola's next question pierced the hushed courtroom. Do you understand the emotional harm you caused these women? Jackson's voice wavered. I'm truly sorry. He was cross-examined on his motivations, merger leverage, personal ambition. Every answer chipped away at the remnants of his defense. At times, his bravado cracked, revealing the man who had orchestrated so many lies. When the judge recessed for the day, Celeste and Mira exchanged weary smiles. Myra's hand rested protectively on her belly. We did it, she whispered. Celeste squeezed her friend's hand. We demanded truth. Outside, flashes from cameras lit their path. They stepped into the afternoon sun, two women who had transformed betrayal into justice, forging a future defined not by his deceit, but by their unwavering strength. The courtroom reconvened the next morning, anticipation crackling through the gallery. Celeste and Mira sat together, each drawing quiet strength from the other. When Jackson was recalled to the stand, his face was drawn, exhaustion etched into the lines around his eyes. Ms. Adebola began gently. Mr. Wolfe, on the stand yesterday, you admitted forging documents and maintaining deception. Do you wish to expand on why you took those actions? Jackson's voice trembled. I lost sight of who I was. I believed success and security mattered more than honesty. He paused, gaze flickering to Celeste. I thought I could fix everything later. Celeste's heart clenched at his confession. He swallowed. I betrayed the two most important women in my life because I was afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of disappointing my family, afraid of losing control. Myra's hand went to her mouth, tears welling. The gallery leaned forward. Jackson's head bowed. I manipulated their lives, turned love into transactions, trust into contracts. I see now the pain I caused. Ms. Adebola pressed on. Do you accept full responsibility? Jackson closed his eyes. Yes. I'm sorry. A soft sob escaped Mira. She clutched Celeste's arm. Celeste placed a hand on her friend's back. The judge studied Jackson's demeanor. Mr. Wolfe, your honesty now is commendable, but too late. The court will weigh these confessions heavily. Jackson nodded, eyes on the floor. As he left the stand, Celeste rose for closing statements. Her voice was steady, though her heart raced. She recounted their ordeal, every lie, every stolen night, every shattered promise, then looked directly at Jackson. Your confessions confirm what we already knew. Justice demands more than apologies. Ms. Adebola summarized their demands: restitution, damages for emotional distress, and a public apology to both women. When the judge adjourned, Celeste and Mira stood united. Reporters clamored for quotes, but they walked past without a word, shoulders squared, heads held high. Outside, Mira cradled her belly. We're almost there. Celeste slipped an arm around her. One step closer to closure and new beginnings. As they departed the courthouse, the afternoon sun illuminated their silhouettes, two survivors of deception, emerging into a future they would write themselves. The courtroom hummed with tension as Judge Calajay called the session to order. Celeste and Mira sat side by side, poised at the plaintiff's table, their attorneys flanking them. Ms. Adebola rose, motioning toward a large easel displaying a series of printed emails. Your Honor, she began, we introduce Exhibit D, internal correspondence between Mr. Wolf and Mr. Monroe's law firm, demonstrating Mr. Wolf's intent to leverage marriage for business gain. She clicked a remote, and the first email appeared on the screen. A message from Jackson Wolf to Victor Monroe, dated 2 months before the wedding. The subject line read, Merger strategy and marriage timeline. The judge leaned forward. Celeste's pulse quickened. This was the smoking gun. Ms. Adebola read aloud. Victor, to maximize merger leverage, my proposal is to formalize our alliance through marriage on June 21st. This will strengthen market confidence and expedite board approvals. After closing, we can address any personal matters. Jackson. A collective gasp rippled through the gallery. Even Jackson's counsel exchanged uneasy glances. Ms. Adebola continued. This email confirms that marriage was conceived not as a union of love, but as a strategic maneuver. Next, she displayed a second email chain. Jackson negotiating with his own legal team about concealing the true purpose of the wedding. He wrote, Ensure that ceremonial announcements frame this as a family celebration, not a corporate move. The judge studied the text, eyebrows knitting. Your Honor, Ms. Adebola said, these communications strip away any pretense of sincerity. They reduce Ms. Monroe's role to that of a pawn in a hostile takeover. She clicked again to show a reply from Victor Monroe. Understood. I will inform my board discreetly. The reply was cordial, but the metadata revealed it had been sent from a London IP address, contradicting Jackson's claim that all negotiations took place in Lagos. Jackson's attorney rose to object. Your Honor, admissibility of metadata is questionable under Nigerian Evidence Act Section 84. Judge Calajay frowned. Overruled. Metadata constitutes electronic evidence of the party's own making. The court finds it both relevant and authentic. Mira felt Celeste's hand tighten around hers. The email evidence had penetrated the heart of Jackson's defense. Ms. Adebola proceeded to the final exhibit, a blind carbon-copied email from Jackson to a third party, outlining contingency plans in case Celeste discovered the scheme. He wrote, Should Celeste learn the truth, we will offer her a settlement and redirect blame to operational misunderstandings. At this, a murmur rose in the courtroom. The judge cleared his throat. This exhibition of intentional deceit, calculated in advance, speaks volumes. Mr. Wolf, do you have anything to say about these emails? Jackson rose, gaze flickering between the judge and the screen. His voice was low. I was under immense pressure. I thought I could manage both relationships and the business deal. Ms. Adebola leaned forward. You thought deceiving 2 women, orchestrating a sham marriage, and fabricating communications was manageable. Jackson's shoulders sagged. I was wrong. The judge nodded gravely. The court will take these emails into account when determining liability and damages. This level of premeditated fraud cannot go unpunished. As Ms. Adebola resumed her seat, Celeste exhaled, relief mingled with sorrow. Mira squeezed her hand, both of them acutely aware that the emails had shifted the balance irrevocably in their favor. Outside, reporters jotted notes feverishly. Inside, 2 women had turned Jackson's own words into the most damning evidence against him. A week later, Celeste and Mira returned to the courthouse, nerves taut as piano wire. The gallery was packed. Flashes from news cameras punctuated the otherwise hushed atmosphere. Judge Calajay took the bench and surveyed the courtroom before speaking. I have reviewed all evidence, heard testimony, and considered the egregious nature of Mr. Wolf's actions. The plaintiffs have proved, by clear and convincing evidence, that Mr. Wolf committed fraud, identity theft, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. A hush fell. At the plaintiff's table, Celeste's grip on Myra's hand tightened. The judge continued. In light of these findings, the court awards Ms. Monroe damages in the amount of 50 million naira for emotional distress, restitution of all unauthorized charges, and a formal public apology to Ms. Monroe and Ms. Santiago. Additionally, Mr. Wolf is prohibited from contacting either party henceforth. Any violation will incur further punitive damages. Celeste's breath caught. 50 million naira. Money could not erase the pain, but it would ensure he could not escape accountability. The judge added, "The court recognizes the additional suffering endured by Ms. Santiago, now Ms. Santiago Folarin, due to her pregnancy. In recognition of her emotional distress and the impact on her health, the court awards an additional 20 million naira." Camera shutters snapped frenetically. Jackson, seated at the defense table, sank into his chair as though the weight of the judgment threatened to crush him. He stared at the bench, eyes wide, anguish plain on his face. His counsel murmured in his ear. He nodded numbly. The judge's gavel fell. "This court is adjourned." As the bailiff called the courtroom to recess, Celeste exhaled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mira leaned toward her, voice trembling with relief. "We did it." Celeste nodded, her own voice thick. "We did. We reclaimed our power." Reporters mobbed the exit, microphones thrust forward. Celeste and Mira, escorted by their attorneys, strode past without comment, heads held high. Outside, a phalanx of cameras captured their silhouettes against the courthouse steps. A reporter finally called out, "Ms. Monroe, your reaction?" Celeste paused, then turned, her composure unwavering. "Justice isn't measured in naira. It's measured in truth. Today, truth prevailed." With that, they disappeared into the midday sun. Later, in the sanctuary of Celeste's home, she and Mira toasted with sparkling water. The verdict signified more than monetary compensation. It validated their suffering and forced Jackson to confront the consequences of his betrayals. Mira placed a gentle hand on her belly. "Now our future can begin." Celeste smiled through tears. "A future we'll write ourselves, on our own terms." Outside, Lagos thrummed with life, indifferent to the courtroom drama. But for Celeste and Mira, the verdict marked the end of one painful chapter, and the bold beginning of another. 2 days after the verdict, Celeste and Mira arranged a meeting at a quiet heritage garden behind the old colonial courthouse. Jacaranda blossoms drifted in the breeze, painting the pathway in violet petals. They chose a wrought iron bench beneath a flowering tree, its branches arching protectively overhead. Celeste arrived first, in a tailored white blouse and navy skirt. She clutched a small envelope, Jackson's resignation letter from Wolf Media Group, returned to her unopened. Mira arrived moments later, glowing with maternal radiance in a flowing midi dress that accommodated her growing belly. They greeted each other with a warm hug before settling onto the bench. Moments later, Jackson emerged from the courthouse steps, clad in a charcoal suit that seemed too sharp for this setting. He hesitated at the garden entrance, gaze flickering between the wrought iron gates and the bench where the two women sat. His footsteps faltered. Celeste stood, Mira at her side. Jackson approached, tension radiating from him like heat. Celeste folded her arms. "Jackson," she said quietly. He paused, swallowing. "Celeste." "Mira." His voice sounded raw, as if he'd been inhaling grit. Mira remained seated, serene yet guarded. Jackson's gaze softened on her. "Mira." "I." Celeste raised a hand to gently halt him. "This is goodbye, Jackson." He blinked, confusion clouding his features. "Goodbye." Celeste drew a breath. "The court has spoken. You've lost the merger, your reputation, and our trust. There's nothing left to say." Jackson's shoulders sagged. "I'm sorry. I try to fix things." Mira rose and placed a hand on her stomach. "Some things are meant to be fixed." Jackson looked from Myra's rounded belly to Celeste's resolute face. His gaze dropped. "I never wanted to hurt you both." Celeste's eyes glimmered with hard-won strength. "You did, and you accepted the consequences." A hush fell. The jacaranda petals drifted between them like silent witnesses. Jackson's throat bobbed as he swallowed. I wish you both happiness. Celeste nodded once. We'll find it, apart from you. Myra's voice was soft but firm. Leave us now. Jackson closed his eyes, then met their gazes. He stepped back, hands dropping to his sides. Without another word, he turned and walked away along the garden path, his silhouette swallowed by dappled sunlight. Celeste released an exhale she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Myra sank back onto the bench. It's over, she whispered. Celeste sat beside her friend and lifted Myra's hand. Completely over. They watched the path where Jackson had disappeared, the garden humming with cicadas and the scent of blossoms. The final goodbye wasn't marked by tears or speeches, just the quiet closure of two women reclaiming their lives. As the last petal drifted from the tree above, Celeste rose and offered her hand to Myra. Come on, we have a future to build. Myra took her hand, and together they walked out of the garden, side by side, unburdened, toward new beginnings. A gentle Lagos breeze rustled palm fronds as Celeste stepped onto the balcony of her penthouse suite, coffee in hand. Below, the city sparkled with late-morning activity. Market stalls, minibus horns, rhythmic drumming echoing from a nearby church. She savored the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, a quiet contrast to the chaos of her past. Inside, the nursery door stood ajar, pastel curtains framing a crib where Myra's son dozed. Myra lay on the adjacent couch, reading a file labeled Monroe's Gambia Education Foundation. Her humming voice rose with delight at scholarship proposals for underprivileged girls, an initiative she'd launched after the lawsuit funded her vision. Celeste set her mug on the balcony's marble ledge and crossed the room. How's my godson? She asked softly. Myra's eyes lit up. He's perfect, sleeping like an angel. She closed the folder and patted the couch beside her. Celeste sat, reaching into a basket of tiny booties. Can you believe it's been a year? Myra twisted a booty between her fingers. A year since we reclaimed our lives. She paused, studying Celeste. Look at you, leading that Gambia initiative, speaking at conferences. You flourished. Celeste leaned back. So have you. That scholarship fund is making a real difference. She frowned playfully. And you managed to stay sane through motherhood. Myra laughed, brushing a curl from her forehead. Some days I'm not so sure. She tapped her phone. The board of Wolf Media called, apparently. They want my input on a corporate ethics overhaul. Irony, right? Celeste shook her head in mock disbelief. The company you helped expose now wants your moral guidance. Myra grinned. I'll consult them for a hefty fee. They shared a laugh, the sound bright and easy. Outside, children's voices drifted up from the courtyard below, chasing a runaway soccer ball. Celeste's gaze followed them. Do you ever think about him? Myra asked, nodding toward the balcony. Celeste's smile softened. Occasionally, but only to remind myself how far we've come. She brushed back a strand of hair. I've learned that truth and trust are priceless. Myra's brow arched. And forgiveness? Celeste sighed. I forgave, not for him, but for me. To let go of bitterness. Myra nodded, eyes misty. Me too. Silence settled, comfortable and warm. Celeste stood and joined Myra by the window. She leaned over the railing, watching the sun glitter on the lagoon. What's next? Myra tapped the scholarship folder. Expanding scholarships to rural communities. Building schools. And, she glanced down at her son, now stirring. Being a mother. Celeste smiled proudly. You'll be amazing. She turned back to the balcony. As for me, I'm writing my memoir, When Lies Unravel. It's part therapy, part inspiration. Myra laughed. Can't wait to read it. They watched the city pulse with life, their hearts full. A year ago, betrayal had threatened to shatter them. Now triumph and hope to find their days. Celeste wrapped an arm around Myra's shoulders. To new beginnings, she said. Myra leaned in, resting her head on Celeste's shoulder. And to the family we chose. As sunlight poured over them, two friends, no longer defined by past pain, embraced a future rich with promise, their lives intertwined by truth, resilience, and an unbreakable bond. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.